Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Trail Pass. So maybe you just bought your brand new to you Toyota and you want to know a little bit more of the history of it. Well, here are a couple steps to see if your vehicle's ever been lifted, off-roaded, or run much bigger tires. So this is kind of you're catching me in the middle of a project here that you'll see here pretty shortly. Here's a little sneak peek of that. But I started pulling the FJ apart here to work on it here, swap out some new parts onto it, and I noticed a couple things here. So stick around, see if any of this has been done to your Toyota, and it'll definitely let you know a little bit more of the history of your vehicle. So by popping the tire off here, it really gives you great access to seeing your shocks, your coils, your upper and lower control arms, your brakes, and you can tell a lot just by right here. So I'm not sure how easy it is to see from your perspective, but up here is where your coilover actually bolts on. It's three 14mm bolts up here on the top of your shock tower. And if there was any kind of cheaper spacer lift, right here is where you would see it. Your entire coilover would be dropped down a little bit, and you would have, say, 1.5 inch spacer right here, and your coil itself would not be all the way up into your shock tower. So that's the first step. There's not really anything wrong with a spacer lift. I hear that all the time. I would never go with a spacer lift. It's cheap or whatever. That's not necessarily true. You can get decent spacer lifts. The issue with a spacer lift is you're not replacing your stock components with an upgraded component. You're basically just raising the vehicle, keeping you the same suspension travel, and you're not really improving it per se. So, if you go spend a couple $1,000s on an Icon or King setup or Fox setup, you're actually getting more capability out of your truck. With a spacer lift, you're not really gaining anything other than a little bit more ground clearance, which if that's all you're after, that's fine. If you're gonna be doing some hardcore off-roading, I would not go with the spacer lift. Either keep it stock, keep it the way Toyota or whoever designed your vehicle intended, or go ahead and upgrade to a more capable setup. So looking a little closer here, you can actually see that this FJ Cruiser does have the TRD tuned Bilsteins, and that is what we'll be replacing it with. But interestingly enough, it's only on this corner. If you go around and look at the other corners of my vehicle, it does just have the Bilstein silver body shocks, the 5100s. So I'm not really sure what the difference is. Obviously they're both Bilstein. Supposedly these are tuned by TRD. But this is one thing I really want to change on my vehicle, seeing that they were different, knowing that it looks like they do have some age on them. I think it would definitely be beneficial for me to go ahead and put an upgraded shock setup on it. Our friends at Sparks Parts, again, hooked me up with what you just saw, and that will be coming here in a future video. But a couple other things you can look at here. Look through here, you can see your bump stop. That one is a stock bump stop. It's not a hydraulic bump stop or anything crazy like that. It looks pretty normal, no excessive wear. Does still have all the rubber on the bottom there, so it's not banging against your lower control arm when it does max out. You can also look at your CV shaft. These are stock CVs. Again, if you did have some kind of crazy Baja running setup, you might have different kinds of CV angles. Again, you definitely see with your control arms, they might say something like total chaos or something like that. All of this is pretty much standard how you would see it on any other Toyota. It also does have your sway bar here, the end links and everything. All of that looks stock. A lot of people, if you're really getting cheap with your lift, and you go to put your lift on, your sway bar might not fit. Some people just go ahead and take those off. Obviously, that can give you greater articulation off-road, but on-road, it can be a little bit sketchy. Your sway bar is to limit the sway of your vehicle while you're going around any kind of turns. So again, it does maybe limit your articulation a little bit off-road, but on-road, it's definitely a lot safer to have that. Moving back here a little bit, I'm sure a lot of y'all picked up on these. The blue things there on my hub, they're actually wheel spacers. Now again, this is one of those things very much similar to the spacer lifts, but basically what these do is they bring out your wheel and tire setup a little bit wider. So your normal hub would sit here, stock, your wheel would bolt right up to there. This is brought out, looks like maybe an inch and a quarter. And again, with wheel spacers, these are not necessarily bad. I did not put these on. They did come when I bought the vehicle stock, but as you can see there on the rear, it does give it a pretty good stance. I have spacers all the way around, and so it's not like you just run them in the front, you're not just running them in the back. They are all the way around. Now, there are several different types of wheel spacers. These are hub-centric. You can also get lug-centric. What that means is the hub-centric ones actually fit against the hub of your vehicle, and they have this lip right here, so when you go to bolt your wheel and tire on, it centers the wheel on this ring, on the hub. The other way to do this is to have lug-centric, where the only thing centering your wheel and tire setup is just the lugs. Basically, this hub-centric design is better, 100%, and it ensures that your wheel and tire setup is centered there. It won't go down the road kind of wonky or anything like that. You won't have, really you won't see it unless you're looking at the kind of the side profile and you see just your wheel and tire setup being a little different there. So again, the reason you'd want to run these could be for stance. If you're a stance boy, I understand, no hate there. But the other reason you might want to do that is for larger tires. So if you put a much wider than stock tire setup, I do right now have stock wheel and tire setup on this, but if you did run much wider, you might actually bottom out the inside of your tire there on the frame when you go to cut the wheel. So you might want to put these wheel spacers on that gets it out a little bit wider, and really that is the major benefit of them, is it allows you to run much wider than stock tires. And these with the blue look like Spider Tracks to me, which is probably, I would say, the best brand of wheel spacers. Let me know what you think down in the comment section, but that's what they look like to me. You can get these things anywhere from really cheap on Amazon to where they actually don't even bolt on, they just would slide over your actual lugs, and that would be fine if you only wanted maybe a 1/4 inch. But one thing to keep in mind is if you're only running that, you're taking away the actual amount of threads that your lug nuts bolt onto. So I would personally stay away from those. These are probably the best setup that you could get. Again, I do believe they're Spider Tracks, but your stock lugs are actually in here, and then your wheel spacer bolts onto those, and the wheel spacer actually has its own studs there that you bolt the tire to, or bolt the wheel to rather. So that is probably the best setup if you do want to run wheel spacers. I personally think it looks really good, at least on this vehicle. It really gets that tire tread out to the very outside of the fenders, looks really good. But if you want to take these off, really easy to do. Again, some people say these are bad because it might create more torque on your control arms, because it's kind of increasing the length that it is away from the vehicle. I'm not sure how true that is. Again, if you have any thoughts on that, leave that in the comment section. But I think if you're running reasonably with wheel spacers, again, these are maybe inch and 1/4, something like that. I don't think it's gonna be too big of an issue. If you want to run, stack them, put 4-inch or 6-inch or, multiple of these on there. First off, I think it would look pretty stupid, but I could see definitely that creating some issues for you later down the road. So moving back here into the rear of the fender area, you can see right here. So this is what's called a body mount chop, and this is very common on Toyotas. Again, it has to do with running larger wheel and tire setup, both wider and taller. And if this was not cut out, all of this would basically just be plated in, kind of be rounded here a little bit. But the reason you would do this is you would cut this out with, say, a plasma cutter or something like that, and gaining this amount of space allows you to run a larger wheel and tire setup without it rubbing and scrubbing on the actual frame of it itself. So this is very common, not really surprising to see that on a used Toyota. A lot of people that have ever lifted their vehicle or wanted to run those bigger wheels and tires have done this. My buddy Briggs, my roommate in college, he had this done, and he has well over 300,000 miles on his 4Runner. It's never become an issue. Now, if you want to do this a little bit more professionally, and something that I plan on doing later down the road, they actually make block-off plates here. Several people make them. You can order them online. But the reason to do that is once you do the body mount chop, you can go ahead and block that off. It would look a little bit nicer. It would kind of reinforce that area a little bit. But this is definitely a telltale sign if anyone's ever run larger wheels and tires. We pointed out several different factors here that might lead you to believing that your vehicle is either lifted currently, was lifted, or at least someone's been here in the past, run some bigger wheels and tires, and it at least gives you a little bit more of a heads up about your vehicle. and gives you a little bit more of the history on it. So if you're looking to purchase a used Toyota, definitely keep all of these factors in mind. Again, there's nothing wrong with lifting your vehicle. There's nothing wrong with running a different wheel and tire setup. If it's done right, it'll be great. But if it's done poorly, that's when you start to see wear on different components. Your bushings, your bearings, all that kind of stuff definitely can have a shorter lifespan if the wheel and tire setup was larger, or if you're running those larger lifts. All right, guys, so thanks for joining me again for another episode of Trail Pass. Let me know what you think. Should I leave those wheel spacers on? Should I take them off? Again, I think it looks really nice, kind of with the stance that it is. Really, there's no reason to run them other than that. Again, these are a stock wheel and tire setup. But there is a lot more new stuff coming for the FJ here very soon. Been working with our friends down in South Carolina at Sparks Parts. They have a whole shipment of parts here coming up, and definitely stay tuned for all of that. So if this is your first time stopping by the channel, please consider subscribing. It really does help us out. If you're interested in any of the tools that we're using, like my impact right down there, definitely check out the description of this video. I did just start an Amazon affiliate program. You can see some of the tools and stuff that we use. And if you're interested in any of that, we do get a small kickback from that, but you actually end up paying the same exact price for those tools that you would normally use on Amazon. So no difference for you. We really appreciate it here at the channel, and it helps us make more future content. So thanks for all of that. But yeah, guys, thanks for stopping by the channel. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.